Do you know how powerful you are?
Welcome to the Risepreneurs Podcast.
Welcome to Risepreneurs.
Reshaping and elevating your mindset to help you achieve what you believe.
Sometimes we don't even see our own greatness. You can't be what you can't see.
And connecting Black cultures to build a community of talent and success.
Black people need to realize that they are assets. You are an asset.
When we rise, you rise.
Come together as a group.
This is Risepreneurs with Terrell Simmons.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Risepreneurs. We had a special guest today, and in this episode, we talked to Shophar. And what could I say about this brother? I was actually introduced to him by a good friend of mine, Xtina. Shout out to Xtina if you're listening. Thank you for connecting me with this brother. Xtina is my Rise sister from Rise San Diego Urban Leadership. And little did I know, Shophar is part of the Rise cohort. I think he just graduated from Rise San Diego Urban Leadership this last session. So I want to say Gen 6, if I'm not mistaken. Hopefully I got that right. But when I got to learn about some of the work that he's doing, and I'm a firm believer in energy, right? I believe we can tap into energy and use it the best of our ability to make decisions and, you know, put ourselves in a good mood, good zone, whatever you want to call it in life. And he's the author, actually, of S.O.L, which stands for Sacred Orgasmic Living. And he goes above and beyond, going to do the breath work, sensual energy, and traditional Chinese medicine. He's a practitioner who uses different things like podcasts, group couple, and individual healing sessions to help support others to heal and explore their sensuality. And he has a very unique take on this. I really hate using the word unique because I don't feel like it does it enough justice to his enlightenment on energy, sensual healing. And he has a whole bunch of acronyms that he uses too, which you'll learn in this episode. And it made me want to explore deeper to kind of really learn more from a level of curiosity of just wanting to know how this energy work or this light work that healers in this space often speak of, that I've kind of tapped into on the surface, but I haven't had the opportunity to dive as deep until I had the conversation with him in this episode. And sometimes I may explore a little bit when I talk to my girl, Xtina. But without further ado, want to dive into the episode. Here's my brother, Shophar. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you at. It's 7 o'clock over here. I got my guy, Shophar, in the building. Where you joining us today, Shophar?
I'm in San Diego, California.
You in San Diego with me. You know what? You know what threw me off? That beautiful background. So you guys can't see this, but Shophar, could you break down the background? Because there's so many different elements that's taking me to a faraway land in your background. So explain the background to the people, all these little textiles you got behind you, so that the people listening, they feel like they're here with us.
Okay, so we're going to take a journey through India, basically, because my lady, she's from India. And so what we have in the background here is a bunch of her different various saris. We got a yellow one, we got a pink and blue one, we got a green one, orange one. And then on either side of me, left and right hand side, we have two heads of the Buddha. So we're definitely on a international flight.
Because I thought you was in a faraway land for a second. So Shophar, how do me and you get connected? I think it's through a mutual friend of ours. Who's that mutual friend? And then let's jump into that.
Christina. So Christina is actually, I know we both have Rise. We have Rise in common, where we both, you know, this is something that we do for our community action plan.
Wait, you
and
Rise
our project
too?
Yes. And I got that. That was through Christina as well.
Now, how did you and Christina meet? Christina's my soul sister. I love her to death. She's going to be on she was on one of our earlier episodes, but I met her through a startup weekend. And you know, like how you meet somebody and you got this Kendrick, just like, this is fan right here when you first meet him. Like, that's how me and her kind of connected. How did you and Christiana connect?
So same way, my lady and her brother. So my lady and her brother Vikas, they were holding a workshop, and Christina was at the workshop. And so that's where we met and everything. And then I think on Instagram, we connected on there. And then she told me about Rise. She was like, when she found out what my lady and me do, she was like, oh, y'all both need to become Rise fellows. And, my lady didn't have time or anything for it, but I looked into it and I was like, okay, this looks like it would be a good fit. So I put in my application and everything.
I love it. So which gen are you? Which Rise?
That's a good, I get mixed up on a number. I think we're generation 6, but we're 2020. So whatever 2020s was, we're generation 2020.
Oh,
which of course you knew that was what a year to be.
So that's a tough year to be a Rise fellow because I think everything probably went online for you. Yeah. So, and then I was in Gen 3 and being in person in Rise, because I'm also in another leadership program called Rockwood, which is, I'm doing it online. And it's 2 different experiences, both great experiences, right? But that in-person experience takes it to a deeper level. Woo! I'm not trying to water down your experience, but I'm just saying, like, there's just something about it for me doing both of these programs.
I agree with you, Terrell, because we had 2 forms. I think we had 2 forms or 2 experiences where we were in person. And then from there, it kicked in and we've still maintained it, but it's just not the same. It's 2 different experiences.
Yeah,
it's definitely different.
Absolutely,
put it that
absolutely. Way. Tell me about what you do now. So now that we know the leadership program, how we met, what do you do? Okay,
so the best way I can explain this for people is because even when I say what I do, a lot of times people still don't have any concept of what I do. So, and trust me, I've tried to break it down to the elevator pitch or, really simplifying it. So if you still at the end of it, it doesn't, because it's very different, just ask me to explain it more. Because I feel like your understanding is also very important for the listeners. But in a nutshell, what I try to say is that I work with sensual energy. So with people's sensuality. I've come up with an acronym called SEX, so sex, but it's sensual emotional exchange. So it's the whole idea that in, sex, we have a physical component, which is the sensual, that's the physical. And then we have an emotional component, and then understanding the exchange of the 2.
Okay. So are you like a sex therapist?
No, not like a licensed sex therapist or anything. So I do, basically it's about 3 different things that we do. Number 1 is my lady and me work with couples, showing couples how to connect deeper. Then she works with just women and to help them heal or have different things. And then same thing, I work with just the fellas sometimes to help them learn different things about their sensuality and everything. And so all of these things,
so this sounds more
come together.
Deeper than the sex. This is more of like actual energy exchange, social, emotional, like literacy and all those components put into one.
Yeah, Terrell. And, for me, I believe that this approach to our sensuality and emotionality can actually heal the world. Like, I think a lot of the problems that we see in society, because we all come from sex, and so when we have, fundamental misunderstandings or false beliefs around sensuality and not really understand how we work energetically in that way, it's going to throw off other aspects of our life, how we get our money or our outlook on life and everything. In other words, I believe if people were having good, toe curling, healthy sex, it could change and heal the world.
And they go deeper that I love that, by the way, because if your energy is right, a lot of things just come into alignment when your energy is right. You're able to tell when somebody's energy is off when they're around you. You're able to reach and connect into that other, whether you want to call it your third eye, your spirit, or whatever it is, that gut instinct that you get when you're trying to make a decision on something or move things forward. And you can listen to that internal and work through it instead of letting it can kind of control you, right? And how you react and how you show up. Now, here's my thing when we talk about men and women. This is more of a question that I'm curious about. Men, we're able to have 2 chromosomes. We're able to have the feminine and the masculine, whereas I don't believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, female have the masculine chromosome. So we kind of can go between both worlds. How do you find in the work that you do, you get more men to tap more into their sensuality, their feminine chromosome, when they grow up in a world that really focuses on the masculine chromosome?
I love that. Good question. Well, first I say so we work with men and women, but I'd like to, honor too that there's all these different expressions of sensuality or sexuality that we work with too. So we work with, bi or, non-binary couples as well. They show up in different ways as well. So there's different expressions, like we may be in a masculine body, but have a feminine expression, like you were saying. So my experience is that the feminine actually has a very strong masculine component as well. What I'd like to say, Terrell, is this, is that really, when we get into the theory of yin and yang in Chinese medicine, the way that the Chinese explain the yin and yang or the feminine and masculine energy is that they're inseparable. And when we separate them, that's when we have what we call death. And that's when we expire in this consciousness and we go on to another. So what I mean is, like, right now as we're breathing, this is a yin and yang, male and feminine aspect as we exhale, inhale, or as our heart beats, sending blood out into the arteries and then taking blood back in from the veins. That's a feminine and masculine. So we can't escape, so all beings have the feminine and masculine energy to different. Now, where we fall on that scale, we all have unique expressions of it. Like in one situation, we may show up a little bit more feminine, more receptive. In another one, we may be more dynamic and taking charge. And the thing that has happened in our patriarchal society, though, is that it's asking for almost all beings to show up in a masculine way, whether we're feminine or masculine. Is asking us to have certain dominant traits and not really be in a place of receptiveness. And that we're in general, in a patriarchal society in general, most of us are taught that the feminine is weak. That's the underlying message, is the feminine energy is weak, that there's something wrong with taking time to rest and to, I got to be on the grind, I got to get this money, what I'm saying? I got to make it happen. I got to do 100 calls today and, grind. That's where success is. And we've been taught that. And here's the thing, Terrell, is like, there is power in that, but there's also a power in resting and allowing things to come to us. The egg doesn't go to the sperm. The egg just sits where it is. It ovulates and opens. Or the flower doesn't go anywhere. The flower just sits there and opens and lets out its fragrance, and the masculine comes to it.
That's power in itself right there. If you didn't catch all them bars that Shophar just placed on us, like, you might have missed it. It might went over your head. You might want to rewind and play that again. It's interesting that you talk about that, because I've been sitting with the term power and what is power, right? And being able to tap into the feminine could be a powerful thing. And alluding back to what you said when you first started, how, sensuality could be the thing that could heal and move this world forward. I get it now after you explain that, like how we got too much testosterone walking around here. We need the feminine touch around here. And even as my mind looks at it, like if I look at every great achievement or movement within our society, I feel it had a feminine touch to move us forward. Specifically, I look at the Black women's role in, like, from slavery, holding down two households, white and Black, right? To modern time, to that young lady that gave that beautiful poem at the inauguration, to women, specifically Black women, who are stepping up nowadays, Black and brown women, and highest entrepreneurs, and building things for community and uplifting community in their entrepreneurial spirits. So I do like where you're going with that. Now, I have to ask you, because I'm just curious, how did you get on this career path? Because this is not a normal career path. Like, how'd you get down this road to where you're at today?
That's a good question. I'll go into that. I do want to speak to one thing about, like you're saying, with the Black feminine, the Black woman. I think, Terrell, one of the major problems in America, we could say in the world, but definitely specific to America, is that it has not honored the Black woman. And, again, when we talk about America has not honored the feminine, in general, white woman, Black woman, just feminine in general, the feminine that's in men, but definitely the womb of the Black woman has been misused in this country and continues to be, and not acknowledged. And until America gets that right, it's going to deal with certain problems. So I just wanted to make, space for that. Like, there's healing that is specific to Black women that needs to be addressed, for sure. So with that, and so to your other question, like, how did I get into this, is very interesting. When I first came into this, I was working at Bank of America.
That's the most masculine place you could work at.
You talk about, like any women that you hear, I mean, any women that I was working with, like I had, some very dynamic managers and stuff. Like, I worked in a call center for Bank of America, and they walk past and you can just hear their ovaries sizzling, like, like I pour women up in these situations, man. So I was working in Bank of America. This is back in 2002. And I met a gentleman who was into this, gentleman we affectionately call him Master Yao, but Yao Morris. And Yao Morris, and he's a brother. And he was into this. He did what was it, like a book signing. And so at this book signing, he was promoting one of his books. And I went to that joint, man. I started reading. I brought his book and I started reading it, and I couldn't put it down. Like, it was on a Saturday. And I kept reading through it because I'm like, wow, this stuff is deep. Like, I don't know what the brother is talking about, but it's intriguing. And he was talking about all this sacred sensuality and sexuality and men and women and yin and yang and stuff. And it just really intrigued me. So that was my beginning back in, matter of fact, yesterday was February 2nd. Yesterday was exactly 19 years ago. Yesterday. It was on February 2nd, 2002.
To make it. Who'd have thought you'd have got an education on sensuality in the most masculine type of environments? That's funny how life works. So, like I told you before the podcast, I like to also ask questions like, what was your first job? Because one thing I noticed, whether it's a young person or an older person listening to this podcast, when I talk out into different communities, people are like, well, I'm at this job, or I had this first job that I'm gonna get doesn't have anything to do with my career, and I need to be out of this job. But I always tell people, like, your first job, there's things that you can learn and still use from that job to grow into your experience today. So don't knock the first job, right? What was your first job? Hopefully Bank of America wasn't. If Bank of America was it, then cool. But what was your first job?
My very first job, I had just turned 16, and what was it? I scooped ice cream at a place on the East Coast. You're from DC.
Yeah.
So I think in the DMV they had Friendly's.
Yeah.
I don't know if Friendly's ice cream shop. Yeah. I worked at a Friendly's.
Get out of here. Wait,
because I grew up in Virginia.
Get out of here, my DMV brother. Look, we learned so much about each other on this podcast. We connected in so many ways. Christiana, Rise, the DMV. I love it. What's one good lesson?
The DMV, yeah.
What's one good lesson you learned from your first job that you would say you still kind of use today? Or if you don't use it today, what's one good lesson you learned from that first job?
Well, I say with Friendly's, that was kind of like my beginning of at least being able to have some social skills, like scooping ice cream and working with customers. I had to at least talk to people. Like in high school, high school and junior high, I was so shy. I didn't really talk to a lot of people. So when I worked at Friendly's, I worked the cash register too. So I had to start interacting with people, which was actually good for me.
And I think to any of my young people that's listening, if you hear that, that's where you get to practice in at these first jobs, right? You learn your social skills. You learn like different, if it's the office environment, acumen. So don't knock your first jobs. You don't have to get right out the gate and from 0 to 60. So sometimes you need that transition phase. So through this journey, this 19-year journey that you've been on since Bank of America to now, what would you say is the best lesson life has taught you from where you're at to now, going on this journey and where you're at? So give me that best life lesson.
I say one of the best life lessons that I've learned, Terrell, is I have an acronym for it actually itself. It's called LIFE, L-I-F-E. So let's go with that one because I think it will help the listeners too. LIFE, L-I-F-E, living in full expression.
Ooh.
Living in full expression, or loving in full expression.
Okay, let's break that down.
So
let's talk about it.
In other words, what I'm saying is that one of life's greatest lessons is to let's live in full expression. Let's love in full expression. Let's be our fullest self. So a lot of times in life, we are taught to be a smaller version of ourselves or to kind of limit our expression. But what we want to do is begin to always, look to ourselves and see if there's some better version of ourselves. And usually there is. There's something that I could, some dream or something that I could go to the forefront and push a little bit more. There's some aspect of myself that maybe doesn't make me step into my fullness and be real about that. So living in full expression or loving in full expression, and then loving is like, in what ways can I be more and more what the Greeks call agape, more and more unconditional love, first for myself and then for others. Like, we live in a very polarized world right now, whether a person puts a mask on or doesn't put a mask on, whether you believe that the virus is real or not, whether Republican or Democrat, like all of these things, yes. But at the end of the day, can we have a conversation with people and learn to love them even unconditionally, regardless of where they fall with their belief systems and everything. And if we had a more loving world, like that. So that's what I mean by loving in full expression or living in full expression.
I love that. Now, I do think living in full expression and loving in full expression, and you can correct me, and you could tell me how you feel. I do think you have to start with self, right? So how does one start to live with oneself and love oneself in full expression so that they can take that agape out into the world, or agape out into the world?
So the method that I like to do is, there's a thing called VIBE. There's an acronym that me and my lady in our workshops we use called VIBE. You see that I'm an acronym guy. You're like SEX, Sensual Emotional Exchange, right? Living in.
I'm here about his acronyms, but I love it. I'm writing them all down. As you can see, I got my little yellow pad. I'm writing down all the acronyms so I can make sure I can keep up. All right, so it's a vibe. Okay, all right, give me the vibe.
It's a vibe in this piece, bro. And that vibe is voice, introspection, breath, and embodiment. So in order to live in full expression, am I being as vocal as I need to be? In other words, am I expressing myself? And again, that's whether just in life in general or with love. Are you letting someone know that you love them? Are you speaking up? Are you speaking your truth? In a situation like at work and they've asked you to do more things for the same amount of money, if you love yourself, you're going to speak up. Because it's like, okay, you want me to do more work, you need to pay me more. That's loving yourself. So in certain situations, we're not being vocal about what it is that we're feeling. So the first letter in vibe, if we want to change the vibe, we want to have a vibe about self-love, is speak up. The I in vibe is introspection, is to look inward. It's like, in order to even know that you need to speak up, you might need to introspect, look inward to see what's going on inwardly. Introspection, to introspect, look inward. And it's like, like you see behind me, you can see it, the listeners can't see it maybe, but I have two pictures of the Buddha. He was known for looking inward. Jesus was a person who looked inward. Like great leaders look inward, to see what's going on with themselves. The B in vibe is for breath. We can go without eating. We can go without drinking for a little bit. We can't go very long without breathing, but yet we take breathing unless we have asthma, or unless you get, the corona or something. Like most people, we take our breath for granted. But breath is so powerful. And the thing is like there's different patterns of breathing. There's different ways, different things that we can do with our breath. Breath is medicinal. Breath is medicinal. So I want people to we can elaborate and go into that more, but breath is medicinal.
I love that.
And then the last thing, the E, is for embodiment.
E is for embodiment. Breath is medicinal. Let's go back to the breath again. Breath is medicinal. Break that down for us. When you say breath is medicinal, what does that mean for somebody who's, just now hearing about vibe and they're loving it and they want to get more in tune to it? What does it mean breath is medicinal?
So it means that normally with a lot of us, a lot of what we call dis-ease starts either on the emotional plane. So again, remember I got sensual emotional exchange. So SEX, the sensual, it starts in the physical level where maybe we're not breathing from our diaphragm. We're breathing more from our chest, which is a shallow breath. And we need to have a more stomach breath, down here with the diaphragm in the stomach, where we're allowing our lungs to take in more oxygen. And when we take in more oxygen, actually in traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, they actually tell us that when we take a deeper, fuller breath from the stomach and the diaphragm, we also allow breath and energy to go down into the kidneys even. So we don't just want to breathe enough for the lungs and the heart. We actually want to even be breathing deep enough that our kidneys get some of that.
Nice,
so that's what I mean on a sensual or physical level. And then on the emotional level, when we have different emotions that are coming up, we can tune into our breathing. Like if we're angry, if we're sad, those are all different physical organs that is going on. So there's different types of breathing that we can do to adjust or address different emotions that are going on. So that's why it's medicinal.
I like that. I like that. So I've always taught this aspect that you're talking about in a different way, mostly a little bit from the science background. So like, say, for example, when a person gets nervous, right? Or they highly stressed, like let's take a job interview, for example. What usually happens especially if you have a fear of public speaking, this is a new environment, you start to breathe from your chest, right? Which then in turn means that when you're breathing from your chest,
right,
the flow of oxygen changes. So that flow of oxygen and that usually goes up to your brain is less now, right? Another thing that's happening is that little lizard brain of yours gets connected. The thing that the lizard brain is supposed to save you from anything, from attacking tigers, lions, and bears, that gets triggered. So you're not coming from the frontal cortex. You're coming from that fear-based brain that's meant to protect us. That's thousands of years old. And so now you're making decisions from here, from the back of the brain. You're not getting enough oxygen because you got that shallow breathing. So from a scientific standpoint, there's a lot of things going on there. And that's why sometimes people, make the mistake of saying things that they didn't mean to say, or not thoughtful phrases, or they forget entirely what they said because they zoned out, because they're becoming this zoned out protection mode phase. So when they're in that phase, how do they start to change the pattern of behavior to breathe from the diaphragm so that they can access their front cortical, mind, and start to get into this vibe that allows them to use their voice and then look at things from the right introspect, have the right breath going on, and embody that moment?
It comes down to that embodiment. So I love what you were saying, the scientific breakdown on it, Terrell. And the embodiment is that last piece, and that's the foundational one, because in order to know what's going on with our breath, or to know what's going on even emotionally with ourselves, we have to be present. We have to be embodied. We have to be in this moment to know, like, oh, you know what? Right now I'm triggered. Right now, seeing this on Instagram, or, someone calling me just now, or my boss has said something to me. I'm in a fight or flight, like you're saying, like the reptilian brain is kicking in, and to be embodied with that. So it means us drawing our awareness into the moment. A lot of times, if we're really paying attention, it's on autopilot. We're like moving through life, but we're not really in the moment. A lot of times, if we might be one place, but we're thinking about another thing. So we're calling our energy back in to be embodied and be in this moment. And that's when we start to be able to play with our breath and stuff more and be able to understand what's going on in this moment. And that takes practice. It takes consistent practice to keep bringing ourselves back to the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I started doing more meditation this year after being very triggered in a very interesting society of things, of events, and too much of that negative energy coming, whether it be through your phone, through your household, and it's just like trigger. And I had to learn, I'm actually still learning to say, let's say somebody is listening, they hear everything you're saying, they love it, and then they want to start this practice and be more in the moment, be in alignment with the vibe. What's the first steps that I kind of need to take to start to ground myself in these principles and practices? What should I start doing? I'm having a hard time. I'm struggling with it. I'm reactionary. What is some first steps I need to start taking to get into this practice?
So I would just say the easiest thing, I'll give one step for each one of them. So let's start with introspection, though, because it all starts by looking inward. So you take a moment, you close your eyes, and you look inward, literally, and see what are you feeling. See if there's any patterns that keep coming up. See if there's anything that you keep getting into a certain argument, or you keep having a certain feeling. So is there something that's coming up? Maybe that's life trying to tell us something. So, and being very honest about that, I feel insecurity when, or I feel angry when, and see then from that point, is it something that I need to be vocal about? Is it something that I need to have a conversation with someone else, a clearing conversation with someone else? From there, also bringing ourselves back to our breath, bringing our attention to our navel, to the navel area, and breathing from there, and allowing ourselves to make kind of a pot belly, kind of breathe out. I know this society tells us that we're not supposed to have stomach fat, especially to the ladies out there, shout out, if you have any little bit of fat around the stomach, then God forbid, go get a tummy tuck. You know what I mean? But breathe from your navel, let it stick out a little bit, Santa Claus joint, and then breathe back in. But keep your stomach out. That's called water breathing. So you keep your stomach fat out as fat as you can, breathe in, and then breathe out, but keep it extended. This is just one pattern of breath. There's so many different ways to do different patterns of breath, but this is water breathing. So you're going to keep your stomach out. And then the last thing is at certain points, after you've come to okay, I am having certain patterns where I'm just keep repeating. I keep having the same conversation in my head over and over again, or the same conversation with my mother or with my lover or whatever. Get up and move your body in a different way. Do something different with your body. This is where dance and movement can be very healing, because believe it or not, if we want to get into the science of it, when we move our body in a different way that we never have before, we're allowing different neural pathways. We're allowing for the energy to go through I don't call it the nervous system, because I think that's a trick. I call it the awareness system.
The awareness system.
The awareness system. And that's one of my push, and because of the work that I do and everything, Terrell, I want to, have that talk with neuroscientists and stuff. That's one of my career goals, is to have it change from the nervous system to the awareness system. We should not be calling it the nervous system. It's the awareness system.
Because when I hear the word nervous, I get nervous just hearing the word nervous.
Exactly.
It's like a trigger. Wait, nervous. Wait, what do I need to be? What's going on? It's more of a stress trigger.
That's that fight or flight. Norepinephrine and adrenaline, cortisol, all of that. That's nervous system. No, let's call it the awareness system. Just saying awareness, calling it the awareness system feels expansive. It just hits
different. Like the young people say, it just hits different. When I say when you say awareness system, now I'm more okay, let me be more alert, and take it in, what's really happening, what's going on, how do I feel? I check in with the vibe, right? With introspection.
Right.
Make sure my breath is well. What am I embodying at this moment? And then let's voice it. I almost feel like with vibe,
exactly,
sometimes you have to start at I, and then the voice becomes the last thing. I'm not sure if the acronym was written to go in set order, but I feel like for me as a leader, sometimes I do I, B, E, and then V. Is that correct? It was supposed to be.
It's always correct. And you know what? And I love what you say there. And it's a very good point for us to bring up for the listeners, is they are the God, they are the master, so that's just a tool for them to use. I like to use acronyms because it helps me remember. So, but it doesn't necessarily have to go in order. Like that last time when we did that, we actually started with the I. And like you said, the voice thing, because that's a thing where we're going outward. Mm-hmm. That might be the last process for a lot of people, because we might need to breathe and embody some stuff before we go, saying something out of our mouth.
I think a lot of people need to do that. A lot of our leaders need to do that. So I've been in alignment with that. So
for sure,
your career, I love it. This is a different type of journey. This is the first time I've ever spoken to somebody in your field and your practice. What is some advice you would give to someone who's listening to this, who would like to start a career in your industry, doing similar things to what you do, or going on a similar journey? What's some advice you would give?
Oh man. So I would say definitely, just start your inner journey, with the vibe, and always know that you ultimately, you may find different people that you might want to learn from, but never fall into guru mode. Never put people up on a pedestal. I think sometimes when we're dealing with meditation and these deep spiritual things, there's a tendency sometimes for some personalities for us to want to put, that master, that sifu, that we learn from up on a pedestal, and they just a person too. If you learn from me, I'm just another human being like yourself. So a human being like yourself. So learn from people humbly, but also have enough confidence that you already are that. There's this sweet spot, right? You don't want to be, I say, pride and doubt, right? And in the middle is where we want to be. We don't want to be too prideful, and we don't want to be doubtful either. We want to find that sweet spot in the middle where there's a humble confidence. And so for people to approach it that way, and then get to people, really find people who have a certain potency, the different practices that people give you, you should be able to get something from them pretty quickly. You know, like if it's really real stuff, you should be able to get something from it really quickly. It impacts your life and you start to be able to quantify. Like this shouldn't just be something in theory. Like you should be able to have quantified results in the real world that you're starting to have breakthroughs.
Absolutely. I agree with all that. And you could tell when you're in conversation with somebody, whether it's real or it's something that's going to be a good lesson for you or something for you. Because I also tell people like, look, you are the master of yourself, right? Can't nobody tell you how to be you, but you can still learn from others on how to improve self, right? So it's like a give and a take. And there's some synergy in that as well. So what do you see the industry? Because I know you want to talk to the neuroscientists and so forth. So what do you think the future looks like for the work that you do? Is it building out a lab with these neuroscientists, reconstructing the way we talk about, like, what does the future look like? I feel like it's so vast and bright. Like, what do you see it as?
What I see it as, Terrell, like I really literally, you know, I believe the sensual emotional exchange when human beings, when we start meeting in the bedroom and we realize that we can actually relate in a way that's more expansive than the porn industry, you know, more expansive than, okay, you know, I put my penis in you and then move back and forth and that's all that sex is. And a lot of us think that and there's nothing wrong with that. But what I believe is that it's way more expansive than that and that it can affect our consciousness. And so what I see it is if we fast forward 10, 20 years into the future, that sensual emotional exchange, human beings being able to relate in a way that's more expansive in the bedroom or wherever we meet up in, we're going to find that this will become a regular way of living. You won't come to just someone like me, like there will be some new thing for us to, some new benchmark for us to be striving for, because this will become everyday. People will know that when we go into the bedroom that we are a more expansive being. And that will take some time because we have a lot of things that are kind of locking our consciousness into a certain way of thinking of sex. But on my website, I say that my mission statement says that to help evolve and expand. I don't say change because I don't want to say that there's anything wrong with how we're already relating, but to help evolve and expand how people think and feel about sex. When people start having more expansive sex, they're not going to get up and make bombs and make the world that we make today.
Because you're going to be in lover's mode. And love does not do that.
Exactly.
And you can correct me wrong. Do we see it as expansive as I could go to a coffee shop and outside of my partner, I could have a sensual exchange with a friend or a neighbor at the coffee shop? Do we see it as that, or we just see it as a one-on-one type of thing with my partner? Or is it vastly like I can have sensual exchanges with a lot of different individuals in the world and transform how we feel and relate to each other on a different level without the sex part, of course?
One thing I love, that's a very good question. And I think that it's both. It's like whatever resonates with us from moment to moment. But it's like this. I like to tell people like this, like if we think about, getting back into the science, we're made of hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, amongst other things, right? And they all get together in different ways. They create different molecules by, a hydrogen, what is it? 2 hydrogens get with 1 oxygen or whatever. And we have H2O or whatever. So I say all that to say that if we're made of this, like we're literally made of things that get together in that way, we would start to be expansive. Like it doesn't mean that we have to do something literally with our genitals. But yes, you're at the coffee shop and you may exchange a sensual moment with something. We're all sharing the same breath in the coffee shop, right? So we'll be able to have a loving or a heart connection conversation in that moment with someone. And that might be it. You might not even see the person again. But it still is something that may impact you and then allow you to go back to your home, to your lover, and have an even more expansive conversation there. Like, so we'll be able to start connect. Like if we're doing the vibe thing, when we're at the grocery store and we ask the clerk, how do you feel? Maybe in the future, it won't even be a question. It's like a tuning into the person so deep that we feel how the person is feeling. And we take a moment to just breathe together. And then we go on. We might not even exchange any words. Because words, Terrell, don't mean anything, literally. Like, what does beauty tell us? If I've never seen an ocean before and you tell me, oh, the ocean is beautiful, you haven't told me anything about what the ocean is. Beautiful doesn't tell me anything. If I ask the clerk, how are you doing today? And a lot of times, most of us don't feel safe enough to be really honest. Like, hey, man, I'm having a shitty day.
Yeah,
you say, oh, I'm good.
Answer. I'm good.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, no. And what does either of those answers really tell us? We need to be able to feel each other. So as we start having more sensual emotion exchange in society, we're going to be able to start feeling each other in a whole other level.
I agree. And it's definitely needed in this day and age and time. And I do think it'll create, if people are intentional about it, a lot of healing for folks as well, so that we can get to that level. So I love what you're doing. What projects are you currently working on, and where can the people find you?
Okay, thank you. So projects that I'm currently working on February 12th, so Valentine's Day weekend, February 12th, my lady and me, we have a workshop called Evolve Love. So that's a Valentine's Day weekend workshop for couples. Can be same sex, can be, it could be two single friends who want to learn together, but it is a workshop for couples. Mm-hmm. We're doing that online. And so that's not this Friday, but next Friday. Also, I have on February 27th, I have a beginning of a series called Wisdom. Nice. Or Wisdom. But Wisdom is at Freshly Faded Barbershop. And that one is just going to be for the fellas, but we're going to be going into breaking down some different things, just kind of spinning some conscious game and everything together. It's going to be pretty dope. And one of the things that we're actually going to be talking about in Wisdom is my book, S.O.L, Sacred Orgasmic Living. S.O.L, Sacred Orgasmic Living. Other than that, also just regularly, my lady and me, we also do full moon and new moon get-togethers. The full moon is on Zoom, so that's a virtual experience. And then we do the new moon in person. Nice.
I love it. And the website where they could check you out at, any social medias that you want to share. Then also, I'll put it in the show notes too for you guys if you don't get it. But if you want to put it on air so that people listening, they can just hop on the website real quick.
Yeah, I'll give you three things. First off, I'll give you my email first off, the website is Faux Show. So like for show, Faux Show Energy Work, FOSHO energywork.com. And then my email is info@FauxShowEnergyWork.com. And then my Instagram, if you want to just check out my Instagram, I'm not on there anymore. I've taken a step back because of some of Instagram's policies, Facebook policies. Right. Like, in my opinion, they're tripping. And I just took a step back just off of, my own personal thing or whatever. But I do still have the page up. I just took the app off of my phone, all Facebook products, including WhatsApp. I just took them all off my phone. But with that being said, my Facebook, my Instagram are still there. So people can still go up there and see stuff. So it's my business name again, but it's just spaces in between. So it's @faux and then _show _energy _work.
Absolutely. So email is the best way to get a hold of this man. Go to the website. You can see all the past stuff, but if you want to get in with this energy, this wave, and catch this vibe, you have to email the man.
Nice. I saw what you did there. I like that.
I had to do it. So, Shophar. I don't know why I'm tripping on my words. Thank you so much, brother, for coming on today. This has been an absolute pleasure to meet my Rise brother. Now that I know that you my Rise brother and my Kendrick soul brother, we will have to stay in touch, do some more things. I'm looking forward to checking out your website and what you have coming out. I got to get that book too. S.O.L, you said it is. Where can I get the book? Just real quick.
Yes, sir. You can get it on lulu.com, LULU.com, lulu.com. And you can also, there's a link on my website. So if you missed that, there's a link on my website where you can get the book.
Go check out that book. Thank you for being here. Any last words of advice or wisdom to send us off with?
Oh, no, man. I would just want to say, first off, I appreciate you, bro, for making this space, clearing this space for a brother for having this platform. I know this is part of your rise thing to empower others and make sure that that vibe, right? Our voice is heard. So I appreciate you. Shout out to Christina too, for the sister, opening up the door for me on this. And yeah, so that's all I really want to say, man. Everything else, man, I feel like we had a really great session, like letting people know. And it's just a journey. Like, if any of these things that I said resonated with you just a little bit, reach out to me. And if I'm not the person to help you explore it more, I can point you in a direction. It don't have to be me. But if anything resonates with you, just be inquisitive, have curiosity about it. Like, last thing I'll say on it, the energy work, we start becoming orgasmic without even having to be touched. That's pretty powerful stuff. So, we've been taught that this world works in a different way. And I'm telling you, like, there's way more to it. So if you want to explore.
If I think the first settlers of this land, the Indian tribes had it right. They was entombed with all this stuff. So we're out of tune right now. So it's going to take some work to get us back into. Shophar, it's been a pleasure. Thank you again, brother. And I can't wait to see what other works that we get into, because I have a feeling we're going to get into something.
For sure. I feel it too. Thank you, Terrell.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Risepreneurs Podcast.
Thank you for taking the journey.
Be sure to like, comment, and smash that subscribe button. And stay connected with Terrell on and off the show. Follow at Risepreneurs on all platforms.
Do what you love what you do. Don't chase the money. Let the money chase you.